All right, guys, I have the shop all to myself tonight, and I thought now would be the perfect time to do an updated Holley carburetor collection video, because I think the last one I did was over a year ago, and I've pretty much thinned out my collection. I've gotten a lot pickier about the types of Holley carburetors that I collect now, and I think the theme here is I'm more focused on collecting the rare and kind of oddball Holley carburetors that they made that were only made for like a few years. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to show you, and we're gonna go in depth. I'm gonna bring you right in on them and show you the features that make them really unique and kind of go over the history on them, because I think it's pretty cool. I also figured there's probably nobody else on YouTube who has all of these models and is able to show them, you know, side by side. So I just thought it was a cool opportunity to see them all next to each other to compare. Maybe nobody else thinks that's very cool, but I did, so we're gonna do it anyway, and you're gonna enjoy this because I'm gonna have fun filming it, so. Quick plug, we have some new stickers that just got added to the website, so definitely go pick up one of those. But I thought I'd start off here with this unit. This is just gonna be a really good reference point to kind of show you why all of these ones are super weird. But this one right here is my Holley 3310-1 given to me by my friend Russell, so shout out to Russell. It came with this old Mr. Gasket plastic hat, and apparently this thing will allow you to pick up some power, according to the old timers. So I've never run it before, but like I said, you can see her on the choke horn, 3310-1. And why I have this one in my collection is, well, because the 3310 was Holley's most famous and popular carburetor model. So this one though is super cool because it's one of the, I guess, harder to come by 780 CFM models. So that's what the -1 means. It means it's 780 CFM. You can also tell because it has the down leg style boosters. But if you had a 3310-2, -3, and so on, your carburetor would have came with the straight leg boosters, and that would have been a 750 CFM model. So this one's really cool, near and dear to me. It's got a manual choke that doesn't work, but I'll get on that soon. It's a vacuum secondary unit, but this one has a secondary metering block conversion. So that was kind of a popular modification to these carburetors way back when, is when you had a vacuum secondary unit, you would have also had a secondary metering plate here, which is just not as tunable, I guess you could say. Some people mess with them and will kind of open up the veins in those metering plates, but a lot of guys just went for a secondary metering block because it allows you to just simply change out the jets as you would on the primary side. So that's what this steel is. This one is in excellent condition and I absolutely love it. So yeah, here's my 780. I'll also show you the underside. Hang tight. But here's the underside of it. So as you can see, just your standard 4-barrel model. And the reason I say that is because that'll be a good segue into our next carburetor, which is actually a 3-barrel. So yes, Holley truly made a 3-barrel carburetor, as you can see, and these things are just so cool. I believe they started making these in 1969, and they only lasted for about 4 years. They eventually replaced them with the Holley Dominator. That was kind of the successor to this. But Holley made these to sort of replace the Mopar 6-pack, the tri-power setups, and also to meet NASCAR's regulations as they started to move away from those multi-carb setups, and they needed a single carburetor that had more CFM. So I thought that was pretty neat. It's got some cool racing history to it, but what I love most about it is obviously that big old secondary butterfly there. And there are so many other features that make this thing really cool, which I'll show you. But yeah, this is hands down probably my favorite carburetor in my collection. So coming in real close, this is list number 3916. And like I said, this is a 950 CFM unit. But there's a couple things that make these three barrels so unique. Obviously, you saw the throttle plate. That's pretty much a dead giveaway. But if this thing was mounted on an engine, a few things you could do to tell, other than looking down at the Venturis, is check out the choke on this. So the three barrels came with this spring-loaded choke, so it's spring-loaded open like that. I am missing the cable, so it has this like manual linkage here with the cable that goes through there and down that little hole. I am missing that piece, so I'm kind of on the hunt for one. But yeah, it has this really odd choke with the holes in it. And I've talked to some old timers, and honestly, everybody said that these chokes like didn't even work. I can honestly see why. I've never been able to get a straight answer out of anyone from Holley as to why they even did those little cutouts. But regardless, really cool, really different. So that's the choke. And then coming over here, you'll see it's a vacuum secondary unit. And it has this massive vacuum pod. I'm talking massive. And so here's a little side-by-side comparison. This is like your standard Holley vacuum pod that you'd find on most models. And then this is the three barrel. And a little side note, I actually rebuilt this whole carburetor, and what I learned in rebuilding it is that this vacuum diaphragm that's in here is not the same as the Mopar 6-pack ones. So you can't just take a 6-pack diaphragm and put it in here. This one only takes 4 screws, and I believe the 6-packs have a few more. They're also a little bit different in the shape. So you'll need to buy a specific diaphragm for this carburetor if you're rebuilding one. But I'd highly advise not to because it's super expensive. So I found one website that sold the rebuild kit for it, and that was a fortune. And then the diaphragm alone, I think, was $50 or $60, which is insane. So it definitely costs a lot to rebuild these now. But yeah, I love this piece so much. It's one of my favorites, like I said. It's in good shape. It is a little dirty. It needs a new coating on it, but I love it. And before we move on, here's a little throttle blade action. So you got your primary and your secondary. How neat is that? Apparently these weren't very streetable, but some guys claim you could get them to run pretty good. I'd like to get this one on an engine soon, so stick around for that. Next up in the collection, we have another Holley 3-barrel. So as soon as I found out that Holley not only made a 950 model, but they also made a 1050 model, I just had to get one. And when this one popped up on eBay for pretty cheap, I snagged it. This one is list number 4604S. And like I said, it's a 1050 model. A quick way you can tell them apart is on the 950s, the secondary would have had the downlag boosters. And what's really different is on these 1050s, they have these sort of, how do I focus this? They have these tubes here that just sort of dump fuel. So it's not your traditional booster. It's literally a tube that draws fuel in. So that was pretty cool. I like that. Like you can see here, it has the same choke, and this one's also missing the cable, but there's a reason. This one doesn't even move, thanks to these squirter extensions here, which I'll talk about in one sec. But the main reason I bought this is because this carburetor was, one, pretty cheap. These can be expensive, but this one was outfitted with this old school Elco gear drive. So what this does, this was a modification done to pretty much like any Holley carburetor model. This is not specific to the 3-barrel, but it's a gear drive that allows the throttle blades to open at a 1-to-1 ratio. So instead of having a progressive linkage, you got a 1-to-1 here, so they all open at the same time. I just thought that was so neat. And so while I don't know exactly how this all works, I've never seen it working on an engine before, you might be wondering, like, well, is it just shooting fuel to the secondary? It's really hard to see. I'll try and bring you in, but there are holes there, so it does shoot fuel into the primaries. But these right here, I guess because it's a 1-to-1, are also shooting fuel here to the secondary. If someone has more info on these, please let me know. I'm trying to figure it all out, and like I said, I've never seen one of these in action, but that's just what I'm assuming. So yeah, and underneath, it's the same style. It's got that giant oval-shaped secondary. So yeah, this is my 1050 model right here next to my 950. So 2 3-barrels in one video. How cool. Next up is another weird Holley carburetor. This one is, let me confirm, this is list number 7002-1, and this is my Holley spread bore carburetor. So check this out. I'm sure a lot of you guys know about this one, but it is still a really weird carburetor, and I wanted it in my collection. This one's not necessarily anything special. It's a 650 CFM unit that I picked up for dirt cheap on eBay. I think this thing was 50 bucks, but I got it not to run on anything, but I like that it had all the vacuum stuff hooked up on it. But basically, the only history that I know on these particular carburetors is that they were made by Holley in 1971, and basically this is going to offend some people, but these were designed to be a better, basically a better performing replacement for the Rochester Quadrajet. So I know there's a lot of you who probably love the Quadrajet, and that's cool. I'm not dissing them. I'm just merely stating the history. Holley wanted to design something that would perform a little better, and basically the reason for the odd shape here on the throttle plate is because these were made to simply bolt on to your factory intake and replace your Rochester Quadrajet. So I like that they were kind of innovative like that. I don't know too much more about them other than that. I'll bring you in close and we'll kind of look at it, but really that's the whole deal with the spread bore. So here's a closer look at my Holley spread bore. Just looking at it from the top down, you can see it's got the smaller primaries there. It's got the boosters that kind of shoot out in a V shape. And it has the larger ones here on the secondary side. This one has all the vacuum choke shenanigans going on here. So I picked this one up because it was relatively complete. There's a look at the fuel bowl. And then you can tell that this one is a newer model though because of the bowl screws here. This is the socket style, and then over here, all of my older ones actually have the ones that require the flathead. That's another way you can kind of tell the age on some of these carburetors. But yeah, so this has got the secondary, vacuum secondary deal, and then spinning it around, you'll see here, it's got the fuel line 4160 style, very typical. And then that's really it. So I don't know. I don't care too much for this one. It's so heavy. Jesus. I'm like trying to lift it and I don't even have the wrist strength to do it. But anyway, not my favorite one, but I really wanted it in the collection just to say that I do have a spread bore. It's different. It's something Holley did. So there you have it. I need a quick beer break here because I've been doing a ton of talking and I'm here by myself. So why not? But gonna pop this bad boy open. Just like that. Got these new gnarly Speed Shop beer koozies. And also get yourself one of these bottle openers while you're at it. So cheers. All right, next up is a really cool carburetor, in my opinion. This is list number 4223-S. And what you're looking at here is a very rare Holley center squirter. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen, you know, the tunnel ram setups that feature the two 660 CFM carburetors on it. Well, this one is really different because this is actually an 850 CFM model. So I didn't even know these things existed until very recently, but I think it's really neat. This particular carb was gifted to me by Daryl. So huge shout out to Daryl. I met him on the Redwood Rally and he gave this to me on the last day. So I just thought that was so generous and so kind. And this is becoming one of my favorites in my collection as I learn more and more about it. But to bring you guys up close, so obviously it's called a center squirter because it has the discharge nozzle right here in the center. Instead of you would typically find it like there would be one here and one here. But this one has it there in the center. It has those short brass nozzles on the primary and the longer ones on the secondary side. And then it's got this kind of unique little metal piece right here that's actually designed so you could still fit your air cleaner on it. So I thought that looked pretty cool. And then coming around over here, all of these 850 CFM center squirters came with the high volume, so the 50cc accelerator pump, just like that. So that's another little performance feature. And then the linkage is really different. So just like my 3-barrel here, which had the Elco gear drive, that's a 1-to-1 ratio. So is this. So Holley had this as a 1-to-1 ratio. So let me, if it'll focus, you can see the primaries and secondaries open at the exact same time, and then the fuel would shoot to both sides. So this is my 850 unit, and why these are really rare. Holley didn't actually make them for that long. I believe they only made them for 2 years in 69 and 70, but correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, here is a look at one. I'd like to find a matching one so that way I could have a pair. So if I ever come to own a tunnel ram, I'd have the most bitchinest setup for a tunnel ram ever. So if you guys see another one floating around for pretty cheap, I'd send it my way. I'd like to buy it. Okay, I saved the best for last. This one is actually the newest one that I've, I guess, added to the collection. Technically, it's not mine to keep. This one is going to be rebuilt and put back on the 427 big block that came out of Blue Bayou, which is our 56 Chevy race car that we're working on the channel. So if you haven't seen those videos, go check them out. But this is the cream of the crop. This thing is so cool and so rare. And the more I research it, the more scared I am to even touch it. I don't even want to look at it. I have seen similar models for sale on eBay for thousands of dollars. Like if you look up this list number, this one is 4575. You will find these for like 2 to 3 grand on eBay. Now, I don't know if they're selling for that much. I'm sure you could possibly find one cheaper, but I was shocked. I remember when you could find these at like the swap meet for a few $100, and I guess they're just becoming harder and harder to find. So I feel very lucky to have my paws all over this Holley Dominator right here. Like I said, this is a very old unit, list number 4575, which is actually the same list number as the ones that Holley made for the Ford Boss 29 NASCAR engines. But yeah, let's bring you guys in for a closer look and you can see what makes this one super special. So as I said, this is list number 4575. And this is a true old school Holley Dominator. In fact, this might be one of the first few ever made. And what I mean by that is in, I believe, 1970 is when Holley rolled these out to the public, because before then they had kind of an exclusive deal with Ford and these weren't available for just regular use. And then in 1970 they released them. Unfortunately, this one is missing the choke here, but it was on a race car. So there's Blue Bayou. The engine's just on the other side there. So because it was a race car, it really didn't need a choke, I guess. But yeah, the Dominator is Holley's 4500 model. So it has a different flange pattern than the like typical, I guess, 4150, 4160 style. So we have this adapter plate that we can bolt it to different manifolds if we need to. But I'll just show you really quick. It's also kind of different because it doesn't have the throttle plate. It's built into the body. And then in doing some quick research, these stacks are really cool too. I couldn't find a definitive answer, but from some forums, I guess these 1-inch tall stacks here were made just to basically isolate the air bleeds here from the lower pressure of when the air, as it's moving through here in the venturi. Somebody was saying it just isolates those outer air bleeds. I don't know how true that is, but what I do know is that you can tell this is a really old unit because of these stacks. So if you look at Holley Dominators over the years, this was kind of the first original design, and then eventually they moved away from these stacks. So all the more modern units, or even shortly after, they got rid of these and it's more of a flat design. And apparently that was done for hood and air cleaner clearance. But some guys say that this was very intentional and worked really well. But this thing is just really frozen in time, and literally, I mean, it's pretty seized up, so we're gonna have our work cut out for us, but this thing needs to be gone through. So I have a rebuild kit on the way. We're gonna really bring this one back to life, but I'm so thrilled to have one. I've never owned a Holley Dominator before. So here it is. These are definitely geared towards racing. They got the high volume pumps. And it's just the prettiest piece. It is also humongous compared to my other ones here. Like, let's get these guys side by side. But you can see, like, wow. So I can't remember if I mentioned, but this is 1050 CFM. So 1,050 CFM out of this Dominator right here, which is kind of funny because it's such a big unit. And then you have like this 3-barrel here that's also 1050 CFM. So just a little comparison there. Well, that's gonna do it for today's video. That's just a little update on my carburetor collection. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. I had a ton of fun just yapping about carburetors and drinking my ice cold beer. If you made it to the end, I really, really appreciate it. You're awesome. Thanks for watching. And very soon we'll be back to work here on Blue Bayou, basically as soon as our parts get in. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, hope you guys have a great evening and we'll see you later. Cheers.